Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel for our next recap of news in the six skill world. Um, if you didn't know, I tried to do a little stream, but I used a YouTube app instead of StreamYard. Look, I'm trying it. I'll do it at some point, but it's getting late and I'm getting tired, so I figured let's do it the traditional way while I work out the kinks, and then yeah, I'm probably gonna try to stream next week at some random time. It's probably not going to be scheduled. It's going to be whenever I have time, but it'll be this show basically covering the news stories. So, look, I haven't seen you guys for a while. I've been posting reviews because I've gotten a lot, and things still are getting delivered at this point in time. And I've got a lot that are still on its way. So you'll see reviews next week, the week after. There's still going to be a ton. But as far as news stories, and I think that's kind of the theme of this one. It feels like we're in the eye of the storm, right? And I say that because we've just gotten through pretty much the big heavy summer season with, for you Star Wars fans, it's been nonstop, right? And it's been so much so that even for someone like me who isn't a big Star Wars collector, um, it's still been tempting to pick up some of those pieces, and I have ordered some of them. And then you've got some heavy Marvel stuff, especially leaning in heavily on the Deadpool and Wolverine hype, which we're still getting, right? And obviously, one of the big announcements we're going to talk about today is the Chewbacca, which everybody seems to love. So it's not that we're not getting things, but that massive just barrage of figure after figure, announcement after announcement, and release after release has slowed down a little bit. So I say the eye of the storm because I don't expect that to stay this way. I think we're going to go into September, and there's a ton of figures that are still to be released, right? And I think Hot Toys is going to have a bunch of things still to drop, right? From Star Wars, from Marvel. I don't think we've seen the end of the Deadpool and Wolverine line. So we'll see what's to come. But I think that's why I haven't done the streams the last, or the videos the last 2 weeks. So this will be a little bit of a consolidated one. So let's start. Let's kick things off with um what I don't think should come as much of a surprise, but it's Kidpool, right? So we saw this teased at one of the conventions. I thought it was a pretty awesome looking figure at the time. If you've watched the movie, and now we're well into the point where I think we can actively discuss spoilers. Um, she was played by Ryan Reynolds' daughter, and in her very brief appearance, she definitely made an impact. Right, had that Deadpool attitude. Definitely had those moments. And one of the things I liked, and you're seeing it here, is that the guns they gave her are actually water guns. Um, I think, given the fact that it is Kidpool, it's very appropriate, but very much in keeping with the character style. There's a lot of attitude here when you look at the pictures, right? Um, this couch. We'll talk about the couch in a little bit, but just the even the eye pieces, right, with the slit eyes. This figure is one that, um, I mean, it screams Deadpool to me, and there's just a ton of personality to it, right? I think the eyes are completely expressive, which we've come to expect from Deadpool, and just the fact that you can pose this up in such an interesting way with the hood up, with the hand gestures, stuffing the hands into the front pockets of the hoodie. Um, the couch, we didn't see the couch in the movie, right? But Hot Toys has leaned heavily into this one, um, basically showing the entire family. And granted, since it is Ryan Reynolds' family, it kind of makes sense, right? Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, his kids playing these versions in Baby Pool. So I get why they're doing it, but it's not something we saw on the screen. Having said that, I'm never gonna turn down, an accessory or a diorama piece, and I think it definitely lends itself to some of the poses here. But again, very simple figure. It's not even the Deadpool suit, right? It's honestly, it's what, red jeans and a hoodie. I mean, it's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. And look, I think, sure, there may be some people that think, this is kind of a little wacky having a kid in this thing. It was from the movie, so if you like the movie, I don't see why this would be a problem. I like the swords too, and I like the fact that the swords are in the backpack. That's where the sheaths are. Look, it's going to be a small figure. If you've seen any of the Stranger Things kids or any of those, I think it's going to be on scale. But as part of the variant of Deadpool, we already have Dogpool. We have two versions of Dogpool coming in. Then you have Baby Pool, Kid Pool, Lady Pool, Head Pool. The question to me is, are we getting more? I think we are. I don't know that we're going to get more Deadpools. If we were to get more, I think Cowboy Pool would be the other one, and Nice Pool, just because they had the most screen time in the movie, and obviously they're the ones that resonated the most. And then, of course, there's just that continued expectation that we're going to get some more Wolverine variants. Not that there were many, but again, right? This is it's such a different version of Deadpool, right? And a great variant with a stitched up mask, and even the eyes. This one in particular, the lazy eyes, so to speak, right, where it's like almost half asleep. It just the attitude that this figure is exuding is just crazy. So I think this is going to look great. It's unique within the Deadpool variants themselves. So I'm pretty excited to get him or to get her. And then the couch again, right? It's not something we saw on screen, but look, it's a great backdrop piece. You can leave it in the box. If not, I might find a use for it at some point, but it's TBD. But pretty exciting overall. So now with that out of the way, let's get into the release for this week, which is before we get into kind of our more controversial topics. Not that there's any, we're not really going to get into drama here, but obviously Chewbacca. A lot of people are extremely happy to get Chewbacca. Check out Fab's figure stream with Nefty from last night. I was in the chat with a couple of you just talking about how great this was. Look, I have no complaints, right? Even for a non-Star Wars collector like me, let me start with that, right? I've gone on and on. A figure like this is tempting because it's unique. Now, it's not the first time we've gotten Chewbacca, right? We got him from A New Hope with the Han Solo. I think there was a 2-pack for that one, and they came with the headsets for the Millennium Falcon. So I know some people got it displayed with the Jazz Inc. Millennium Falcon cockpit. So that was one. And then I know we got an older version of him as a 2-pack from The Force Awakens with the older Han Solo. I did not pick that one up, and I always regretted it because I do have most of that line, except for those two figures. I know, stupid. That happens with collectors a lot, right? I think we have to realize sometimes we don't make the smartest decisions. So that comes into play. Now, this Chewbacca is based on The Empire Strikes Back, right? With the broken down droid. Now, the protocol droid is the C-3PO isn't die-cast; it's plastic, and so just to take that out of the way. Now, rolling eyes and an articulated jaw, that's fine. Right. And then again, this is an artisan, but they are still saying that there is some wool detailing on this sculpt. So it's still pretty impressive. And again, it's Chewbacca, right? This is a standout character that's not going to be like anything else in your collection. And sure, for those of you that watch The Acolyte, or Book of Boba Fett, there have been other Wookiees, but Book of Boba Fett probably had, and I don't know, Black Chrysanthemum or something like that. I'm butchering that probably, but that was the most memorable one. The one from The Acolyte barely stands out, to be honest. So Chewbacca is the one we're gonna get. So I think if you wanted, first of all, a representation of one of the key characters from Star Wars, this is a great opportunity to pick him up. And second, right, I mean, visually and from a figure perspective, from a height perspective, he's going to be unique, right? He's just going to stand out. Now, a lot of people were also hyped up about the new Leia tease. I think there was some discussion this is a reused sculpt with just a new body. I could see Hot Toys doing this. I don't know if they will. And if they did, again, do I own a Leia? I don't. I do own a Luke. And I don't think I've ordered the Han yet from Return of the Jedi. So again, I'm just not totally invested in the Star Wars line, right? The direction I took was mainly lightsaber characters with a few exceptions. But Chewbacca is an iconic character from Star Wars, right? Not that he's Darth Vader or Luke or Han, but as Han's companion and friend, um, it's hard to pass up on this, and he looks good, right? I think when you look at this, sure, it's just a lot of hair, and not all of it as well, but I can't say anything really negative about this. The eyes look great, the articulated jaw, also great. The messed up weathered C3PO in the back. It's very much, if you've watched Empire Strikes Back, I mean, what's not to like here? So I know a lot of people, a lot of Star Wars fans have been clamoring for Chewbacca. So it's great to see Hot Toys finally release that and finally give fans what they want. Now, the only comment here is this is not a cheap figure. It's coming in at, I think, 430, not with tax, no shipping included. So it's gonna set you back a decent amount. And I think that's based on scale, that's based on the all the hairstyling he has. Um, so it's something where, while I recognize how iconic the character is, um, I have to think more carefully about it because there's just so much coming out at this point. But I will say, I think if you're a Star Wars fan, a diehard Star Wars fan, you're not going to pass up on Chewbacca. So for me, it's something that I'm keeping on the radar, right? I think he'd look great with the Star Wars figures I do have because I do collect a couple, right? And this is the kind of figure that would appeal to me. So I'm going to keep an eye on him. I haven't pre-ordered him, but I have a feeling that I'm going to end up picking this one up. It's just hard to pass on something that looks this good, right? And again, while I'm not a Star Wars mega fan, right, I enjoyed the original trilogy, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. So to have a pivotal character like that is really something. And I'll be honest, if and this is the part of the conversation we're getting to, is if they were to make this version of Leia, um, I think it would be very tempting to pick her up, because again, very scene specific, but with the broken down C3PO on his back, you can definitely pair these up. Uh, I think we'll know soon enough if this figure is coming. I think she is. I think with how deep Hot Toys is going into the Star Wars line, it just makes sense. So very exciting release. I saw, again, the community was just going nuts last night about this one, and even this morning. So it's exciting to see Hot Toys delve into those characters. And again, for you Star Wars fans, I think as a Marvel fan, it's been a very, very light year so far. Yeah, there have been some great releases. Obviously, we got the Mark 42. We've gotten the Black Widow artisan, right? The Scarlet Witch artisan. So, well, actually, that one came out last year, I think. But we've gotten a lot of figures, but not at the quantity that Star Wars that Hot Toys is going in with Star Wars. So, you Star Wars fans, you're getting. I feel happy for you because you're getting a ton of great looking pieces, but at the same time, I do sympathize with your wallets because it is a lot to keep up with. And we're even going to discuss some of Sideshow's new or relaunch of their Scum and Villainy line, because that's an interesting one. I'm not excited for those releases, but it is worth discussing the cost in those, because keep in mind, again, this is 430. Look at how good it looks. Look at what he includes. But there's something worth discussing based on price point. So before we get into that, though, because I do collect some Star Wars, I will tell you that we'll discuss the next figure, which is, let's get into him, Grand Admiral Thrawn. So based on his appearance in Ahsoka, which, listen, I thought that was a pretty decent show overall. I enjoyed it. I thought, of the Star Wars shows, it's one of the ones I enjoyed the most. And again, I just have a connection to Grand Admiral Thrawn, not from the Clone Wars cartoons, but from the books. Right, in the books, he was a great character. He had the Thrawn trilogy was an amazing, and just an amazing storyline that I wish they had adapted. I know a lot of people are coming to this character based on the Clone Wars. I know nothing of that, so I apologize in advance for that. But look, when I saw him be the kind of the pivotal linchpin of that Ahsoka season, and even get mentioned in the Mandalorian during the episode where Ahsoka shows up, it was very, very intriguing, right? So they're releasing him early. He wasn't due for a while. So my payment plan on him hasn't even started. So I may convert that to an immediate pay, an immediate purchase, just because I'd like to get him in hand sooner rather than later. I think he looks great. I do think the only complaint that everybody seemed to have was his uniform is a little too crisp for somebody that's been in exile forever. And when you look at the status of the his trooper, his armor, and how everything is worn down. And even in the show, his uniform is a little frayed. Um, Hot Toys took some liberties, but he looks great. I have to be honest. A simple figure, but the sculpt looks great. This display stand looks excellent. The uniform. The only thing I have to compare against is the Sideshow Grand Admiral Thrawn, which is much more based on the comic book appearance, I would say, or an artistic representation of the book series. Um, so obviously 2 very different versions, and that one is just look, Sideshow for its time was doing some great looking pieces, but they just don't hold up. Like, the bodies aren't great, the material that was used was extremely thick, so this just looks like a much better figure overall. So I'm really excited to get this in hand, and more importantly, to really start the Ahsoka line, because I do have most of those figures on order. I was hoping they'd go into some other characters, but um, they went Hot Toys went super deep into this line. So I'm glad that this one turned out as well as it did. So, keeping on with announcements and releases, let me pull up the next one, which is, let's see, do we have anything Hot Toys related? No, I think that's it for Hot Toys. So let's get into you guys. If you tune in, you probably tune in for stuff that um, not many other people discuss. So let's get into it. Let's get into 3-0. Uh, I'll admit I really like 3-0, but unfortunately, and you'll see this. I have the Mike Wheeler Stranger Things review going up. So he's one of the kids from Stranger Things, based on the season 1 appearance. Um, and I also looked at the Will Byers recently that they released together, pretty much. And so 3-0, I've been a big fan of them, especially with their Rambo. I think the Rambo figures they did from all 3 movies are first of all, some of the best Stallone figures we've gotten in the market, and for 3-0, some of the best figures they've done, period, right? There's just accessory-wise, body-wise, posability-wise, sculpt-wise, most importantly, they just knocked it out of the park with those. So they took a lot of care. Now, 3-0 is also known for Transformers, and I've been tempted to pick up some of their Transformers figures, right? Because they just look phenomenal, especially those premium level Optimus Prime figures. If any of you have those, I'd be very curious to hear what your take is on those, because they look stunning. They look like there's a ton of detail in them, and I am tempted to at least get one at some point to have a representation of Optimus Prime or of the cinematic Transformers in the collection. Um, but the other thing that they're launching into is the Fallout series, and they've done a lot of the armors, right? The Brotherhood of Steel armors, that again, very impressive looking. I will say I am familiar with the Fallout line, but I got more into it based on the TV show, the Amazon Prime show, which is it's phenomenal, right? It's gritty, and it just has an interesting tone to it that I think kind of matches the video games a little bit, and it's also canonical to the games. It's a storyline that runs parallel to some of the other events, so I think that kind of link is pretty nice, especially with Bethesda involved. But going back again to 3-0 before we get into the figure, my biggest issue is the Rambos, they knocked out of the park. Transformers, they do great. The Stranger Things line, right, they released the Demogorgon, great figure, although it's still sitting, right, it's a shelf, it's a pet room at this point. They released the 11, the main character. She has to have had one of the best likenesses I've seen, right? That was another impressive figure. Then they released Dustin. Okay, Lucas was pretty good, was pretty solid. And then again, these last 2, especially, and I'll give you a preview of the review that's coming out next week, but the Mike figure is just the paint app on the sculpt is what really brings it back. So for figures that are pretty simple, not great. Now, I preface that because I said all of that because I like ReZero, and because I like the TV show, right, a lot, um, they announced a Sole Survivor male. I'm wondering, I'm guessing we're gonna get a female version of this figure at some point, just because they're being very, not just a Sole Survivor, they're being very, specific here. Um, and look, he looks great. I He's obviously based on the video game, I think, Vault 111. Right, in the show, we're looking at Vault 33, so different vaults here. But a lot of this, if you're a fan of the show, right, and again, because of Bethesda's involvement, a lot of the design that went into the show is matching what we saw in the game, from the vault suits to the statues to the weaponry, right, and the gear. So this one is starting to blur the lines a little bit, where as somebody who wants maybe a little representation from the TV show, I could see myself picking up this figure. Right? I don't know if in the video game, and I don't. Again, I apologize. I don't know if this is the way the character looks. I think there's a lot of customization that goes into the game, so um, I'm guessing it's just generic, right? Which is fine. But look, the ARM computer, the weaponry, um, it's not a bad looking figure, and cost-wise, I don't think it's that expensive. If we go into the cost, 180, $180. So this is also gonna factor into the conversation we're gonna have about cost, right? Because you're getting, look at the accessories you're getting. You're getting, and let's go here. You obviously get the gear to hold the weapons. You get this giant, weapon, you get the revolver, you get it's not a packed release, but it's got some decent pieces. And again, I get it. It's kind of a nondescript character, but it's still pretty cool. And I think if ReZero can deliver something that looks like this prototype picture, I'd be pretty happy with it. So this is one that I'm very tempted to pick up. And the only reason that I'm a little hesitant is I feel like it's gonna start me down a slippery slope, and I'm gonna wanna pick up one of these, battle armor figures, especially again, with how much I like the show, that's pretty much the critical component there. But it's an exciting release, and again, 3-0 for what they're doing here, I'm really impressed, and I really appreciate the price point that they're keeping things at, because I think it's very easy with what we're seeing. We're seeing Hot Toys, right, is at the 300 at this point, right? Some figures are less, some figures are much higher, right? That Chewbacca's 430. In art, um, in art is just super expensive. Um, J&D Kojin Works, I know they've only got like 3 figures, 3 pre-orders out. They haven't released anything, but very expensive. And you're kind of seeing that down the line. Like Damn Toys, I remember when Damn Toys were relatively cheap, and now if you pick up one of their military figures, you're pushing 250 or the like. So everything is going up in cost. And then here you have 3-0 doing licensed figures too, and they're still managing to keep the cost down. With that, there also comes some expectations, like that you're not necessarily gonna get the best release overall, or that you're not gonna get the best head sculpt, but 3-0 can still surprise you. So this is a really nice release. Again, I think even if you're a fan of the show, um, this could be a good representation of that. Now, obviously, I'd like for them to release some figures from the show, and maybe because 3-0 does have a Fallout license, and we've seen them do TV shows before. We've seen them do Walking Dead. They're doing Stranger Things, right? So they have kind of dabbled in that. I'd love to see some representation from the show as well. Some Vault 33 characters, the Ghoul, and the like. So I think this is really promising. They've been doing the suit, so to see them start delving into some of these characters, pretty interesting. So exciting as well. And now, um, keeping up with announcements. Actually, it's been there's been a couple of things out there. Um, let's go into Exo 6. Exo 6, very niche line, right? I think um, I've said this before. You have to be a Star Trek fan to get these figures, right? In an inundated market where there is so much to pick from. Um, for even hardcore fans, or hardcore collectors, right? When you're trying to decide where you're going to invest your money into, are you going to pick, a Dr. Leonard McCoy, or even a next generation TNG, Geordi or Captain Picard or Riker with. And the reason I bring them up is it's a very simple uniform, very simple look. You get some accessories, but I mean, look, sometimes the characters just come with a cup of coffee, which is fine, right? If you love the show, that that represents a lot, right? Captain Picard with his Earl Grey, that means a lot. But for the casual collector, when you've got Hot Toys Marvel, Hot Toys Star Wars, that Chewbacca figure, for example, and you're trying to figure out where to invest, a character like this, I don't think is going to necessarily grab people's attention. So this is a line, and I do respect Exo Six for it. This is a line that very much is focused on um, a very specific collector, the fans, and I think Exo Six has been doing a great job. Um, More importantly, I think they've been improving a lot. The tailoring was always there, right? I've said that from the start with some of their first figures. The uniforms were there, the accessories were really well done. It all came down to the sculpts, and a lot of the early sculpts from their Voyager line, kind of questionable. Then they did have the gems here and there, and I really started to feel that they hit it out of the park with the Strange New Worlds line. Um, if that is the new benchmark that they've set for themselves, and all other figures are gonna start looking like that, I think Exo 6 has a bright future ahead of them. And again, I know even for fans, there's a little debate about the the logistics and the logic behind how they're releasing, right? People want the main characters. People want Captain Kirk, Spock from the original series. People want Picard, Riker. And the way that Exo 6 has been doing things is they'll give us a major character, but at the same time, they'll give us a tertiary character or a really background character. Um, Look, I'm not going to criticize how they're doing things. I get why people are upset because people want to complete the cruise. Take, for example, the Wrath of Khan. Everybody's been waiting for the three main ones for that movie, which are Leonard McCoy, Spock, and obviously Captain Kirk in those red tunics. Um, Instead, what did we get? We got Savick. Now, I ordered Savick because I think she's a great character, but I can get and understand why people are upset. So look, finally, after a lengthy delay, it looks like Exo 6 is finally dropping the Leonard McCoy from the motion picture, and this was the Disco McCoy that people call because of the chain and then the exposed chest. Um, this was one I'm not getting, right? Not for me. I've watched the motion picture; it's fine, but I really think Star Trek hit its groove with, or from a motion picture point of view, with the Wrath of Khan. So I'm waiting for those. But look, they've already released Exorcist. Already has Kirk from this movie and the Spock. So if you want to get complete the trio of main characters, so to speak, now you've got a chance to pick up a coin, and he looks fine, right? I think the one other thing about Exo 6 is whoever takes their pictures or whoever does their promo shots, they do them early. So a lot of these are early prototypes that are still getting improved. So that's the one thing I will say that I've noticed is when you buy from Exo 6, sometimes the final product actually looks better than the prototype, which is the complete opposite almost of other companies like Hot Toys or the like, where you see a prototype that's been hand done, and then the final product is a little bit downgraded. So that's a positive. Doesn't mean it's always going to be the case, but it's just something to keep in mind. This looks pretty good, right? The hands, the rings, the sculpt work. Um, if this can match the Strange New Worlds line, I think you're in for a win. So Exo 6 coming in again. They've been pretty slow too. They've got some releases, but it's been it's been a pretty interesting year for them as well. I don't know if I'd call it growing pains or the like. Now, before we get into the final topic, let's talk a little social toys. And look, we'll start with what are they calling this? Uh, the Lion Warrior. It's Power Rangers, right? I know nothing about Power Rangers. I know the original ones, right? And then I think they went to Dinosaur World or they went to Turbo World or something, or not World, but a different iteration. I know nothing about this. So I'm not really talking about the figures per se, right? This is more talk about Soso, and I'm not gonna go over all of them because they honestly dropped the announcement of 5 Red Rangers from different iterations of the show. So, this is seeing a trend now continuing with Soso, which is right, they've leaned heavily into the CW world of superheroes, giving us, right, the last figure they released was the Supergirl that was supposed to be from that world, right? They've done a lot of those characters as well, and now we're seeing them do a lot of these Power Rangers. Um, there's nothing wrong with it. So this is not a criticism of the figures, right? To me, they seem very simple to do because the suit itself is just right. There's some variation in those, right, from series to series. So actually, let's look at another one as well, just to compare. But there is a slight variation from series to series, right? Um, but it's just like what some different patterns, some different logos, but this one looks very identical. So the only changes become your accessories, your weapons, your belts, and your helmets. Um, and again, since you're not doing a sculpted face, I feel like there's a little bit more ease here. And the fact that they're only doing 300 of these, it's a very small production batch. Um, which begs the question, where is social going with this? The other thing that's interesting here, and I just noticed, is that they're doing these clear bases as opposed to the more traditional, what do they do? Are they the hexagonal or octagonal bases? But they're traditional bases that they usually gave us, right? So I don't know. I just social's been very interesting. I'm a big fan of their work, right? I think I'm waiting for their Blade from Blade Trinity to drop. I'm also waiting for a couple other figures to drop including the is it Deathstroke from Justice League? I think those 2 figures look phenomenal. But since then, I really haven't jumped at a lot of their pre-orders because they've been leaning so heavily in this. So to me, it's just interesting that Soso has decided to almost put all their chips into this. Not sure what's going on with them as a company. I'm sure from a production point of view, doing these kinds of variations may be easier. What leaves me scratching my head a little bit was um, they did the X-Men figures, right? They did the Gambit, they did the Rogue. When Present Toys dropped those pre-orders for both Magneto and for Cyclops, so right, just to kind of announce we're doing something, they dropped that big image that showed all these X-Men characters, right? And they even had an X on which were coming soon, which included a Wolverine, a Jean Grey, their own Cyclops, and a Professor X. And at this point, that was months ago. And instead of jumping into that and giving us some of those, they kind of ignored it and said, "All right, we're going in a different direction." So it's just curious to me, um, what's happened to Social because there was a time when Social would release something at pre-order, and I was almost guaranteed to just order it, uh, because they were delving into lines or filling in lines that I needed to fill. I'm sure there's a market for these, right? If you're a Power Rangers fan, I'm not trying to rain on your parade, but to me, it's just interesting that Sosa's going in this direction with all these Rangers, and I don't wanna say that they're abandoning the other ones because who knows, but, some of the expectations, some of what that made them so good was that they would release those figures and those companion pieces to some Hot Wheels lines and the like, so, um, I think only time will tell. I just thought it was pretty interesting that this is where they're going. And now to wrap up the stream, sorry. I'm still in that mindset from trying and failing miserably to launch. Let's talk about cost, and we're gonna talk about, we'll look at the Greedo pictures from Hot Toys or from Sideshow. So, Sideshow basically launched their Scum and Villainy line, right? Um, the exclusive for the Greedo is this, blue milk. Um, but that's pretty much it. When you look at him, he's got his uniform. The sculpt looks fine. I'm not gonna tell you that the sculpt looks terrible, right? But look at the blaster, very small. I think these are flexi hands. Um, it's a decent looking figure. Um, I really think you have to be, um, again, not for me. I'm not the target market. So, but I do think for those of you that are super Star Wars fans, this line is extremely appealing, right? These characters have all these different aliens and these different characters from the cantina show up on your shelf. It's appealing. So I can see why Sideshow's deciding to revisit these and revive and upgrade these. Hopefully the bodies are better. Those early Sideshow bodies have not held up well, and the sculpt work too, right? The paint app is very antiquated. So I haven't gotten a Sideshow figure in a long time. So hopefully the prototype on these from the sculpt looks pretty decent, right? The uniform looks a little too clean almost. There's some slight weathering that they're doing, but look, I can forgive that. Now, here's where we come into what I'm going to call the questionable. I think this one is retailing at 280 or 275. Again, pre-tax, pre-shipping. So once you go all in, this is gonna pass the $300. That's Hot Toys level pricing, right? And as much as I like Sideshow, I order all my Hot Toys, most of my Hot Toys through Sideshow, right? Great customer service, great company overall. But as much as I like them, um, can't say that I don't think the price is justified here. Um, and again, not to rain on anyone's parade or really argue that this figure doesn't look good, but it's very bare bones. And I think this is where the conversation comes in about cost, right? Hot Toys, listen, I don't think Hot Toys is worth that either. I think Hot Toys has escalated the prices on their pieces as things go on, right? Even the Kang that we just got, um, from Quantumania. I like the figure. I think it's a really solid release. It's one of the more simple, basic releases. So you'll see that in the review as well. And there are other reviews already going around. But I I think it wasn't worth necessarily the cost. Right. In the past, a figure like that would have been the 160 range. Yeah, things have improved, cost everything's gotten more expensive. So I get it. But it's also Hot Toys, right? And they've established a benchmark with their sculpts, with the quality of their work. Not to say that everything is a home run or that they don't have quality issues, right? Like you see issues because everything does. But they've been one of the most dependable companies, I think, of all the figures I've gotten. I think very rarely have I gotten an issue with their 6 mil figures. So that's a plus. So Sideshow coming in here and charging all that money, I mean, you can argue it's the license, you can argue it's something else, but when you compare it to some of the figures that Hot Toys is putting out for the same cost and from the same license, I mean, it's night and day. And you're getting a ton of more accessories, you're getting better sculpts, you're getting better bodies, you're getting just a better product, I think. So it's interesting to me that I think InArt came in, right? And I'm not gonna blame InArt, but they came into the market, and they decided to push the envelope on the price point a little bit, right? That initial joke pushed I think if you got it, it was first of all you couldn't get it if you were in the US, right? You had to go through a retailer, but I think it was about 1,000 or more. So that bumped everything up. And look, I'm guilty of biting into that too, right? The Harry Potter kids, the deluxes are not cheap. They're in the 580 as well. So it's a smaller figure, right? Again, I'm doing that specifically for the license, but I get that the price it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and the fact that I'm paying it, that's on me. But nobody's forcing me to do it. But I just think the trend started with that. Now we're seeing the artisan figures come in from Hot Toys at that price point. We're seeing other companies kind of raise their price point too. Even third party figures are starting to come in a little bit, right? There was a time we could get third party for 120, 130. Now it's pushing 200 as well. Everything is going up. Um, but I think for Sideshow to do that, it's just interesting to me. I don't know that they've earned that yet. And if you've gotten some of the latest figures and I'm wrong, please tell me that. I get it, but I just think the prices are getting a little out of whack, and that's why I do appreciate a company like 3 because the Stranger Things kids were 165 straight from 3. That Fallout figure, right, the Soul Survivor, with the accessories and looking pretty decent, is still coming in at 180, right? and it's got a lot more accessories to it. The Rambo figures were 200. Great sculpt, tons of accessories, licensed. So it begs the question. I don't know how 3 is doing that. Kudos to them, right? Props to them because the fact that they're doing these figures and maintaining them at that cost, I give them a pass on a lot of their things because they're able to do that. So a lot of respect to 3 for what they're able to do there. Um, a lot of respect to X06. X06 is keeping the price point in that same range. I think they have to, right? Because they're going to try to make a lot of these characters. And, if the figures start creeping into the $300 territory, usually or normally, I think people are going to not buy as much. And for X06, you want to buy crew, right? You want to have the entire crew, or you want to at least have one of these figures, right? I don't think just having one, it could work, but for me, I want the crews, so the price point is very important to me. And the fact that X06 is managing to keep things in that range is pretty nice. But again, I think there's this trend of things going up. Um, I don't think necessarily any of it is justified at the end of the day. These are chunks of plastic, right? But the fact that Sideshow is jumping in there with these characters that barely had any screen time, and charging the price point that they are, um, I don't know. Not for me. Definitely not for me. If you're a fan, and you want these characters, look, I don't know that Hot Toys is gonna do these at this point, right? With the partnership Hot Toys had with, Sideshow in particular, which is pretty strong. You saw it with the General Grievous, right? It took a while. Sideshow even reissued their General Grievous before Hot Toys decided to do theirs, or at least announce theirs. So there's a lot there going on in the background, but, just something to consider because I think the cost discussion is one that we have to have as collectors because it impacts things, right? And you're not necessarily likely to pick up a lot of these things as you go. So, look, that was a quick look at the six scale news for this week and last week. A lot of good things coming out, but again, even with the quantity, because there is a lot, right? Even with Social dropping five, it's five variations. 3 dropping a couple. Hot Toys dropping 2 over the course of 2 weeks. We're back to kind of 1 announcement per week. Um, it's funny, when you look at it in total, there's still a lot that's coming out or that's been announced, but it just feels because of the craziness that we've had all summer, it just feels like a much slower period. So we'll see how things pick up or if they stay this way through the end of the year. But regardless, there's a lot of good stuff out there. Next week, you'll see the reviews for Kang, the Hot Toys Kang. Um, I know the actor is controversial at this point, but I'm just gonna look at the figure, right? I'm not gonna talk about the controversy. Um, it's not why I think we do these reviews. So there's that one. I'm gonna do the Stranger Things Mike Wheeler as well. Preview is um so you'll see those, and then I've got a bunch of other things coming. Mighty Thor shipped, Natiri from Avatar: The Way of Water shipped. So I'll be able to do a comparison look between her and Jake Sully. The BTS test pilot Maverick shipped as well from. So hopefully that one gets here, and then we'll see what else drops. Unfortunately, my She-Hulk got delayed. Mantis got delayed from Sideshow. I just got the delay email for the Gantry and the Mark 6 again. So I'm hoping at some point though I get those emails too where it's like you've already ordered, just finish it and we'll ship it tomorrow. Hopefully that starts happening because that's exactly what happened with the Natiri. So uh, we're still getting a ton of releases at this point in time, and the announcements aren't stopping. Right, we're seeing that. Are they going to be as crazy? Are we going to get 5 per week? Maybe not anymore, but we're still going to get some announcements, and I still think we're going to get a lot from Deadpool and Wolverine. But look, that was a quick look at this week's news stories. I will try to figure out the stream thing because it'll be good to do this, I guess, live for the one or two of you that are going to watch live, which is fine, right? This is just being, I'm just doing this for the end of the day. But I'll try to figure that out if I can get that ready for next week or I can do something else. We'll do it. So for now, thanks for watching. And if you're enjoying the content, please consider dropping a like, comment, or subscribing. And we'll touch base on the next video.